Now let's calculate the reference data for the risk-free rate. For this example, we have three objectives. One, setting up the reference data for the risk-free rate using ranges. Ranges can be relevant to a sheet or to the entire workbook. The second objective is creating a formula to access this risk-free rate reference data using the index match combination. Third objective is setting up validation lists so that data quality is preserved. Now, a side note, the risk-free rate in each country can vary across time due to macroeconomic conditions. Its monthly, quarterly, or yearly values can be interpolated from the appropriate bond yield curves generated by different durations of risk-free bonds. The formula for these straight line interpolations can be accessed in our straight line interpolations lesson in the lunchtime lesson series. Since each country will have its own risk-free rate, we'll set up a two-dimensional matrix. Please note, we'll add an extra column and row as buffers in the gray so that we can easily add additional years or countries without impacting the formulas referencing this risk-free rate reference data. So, for the first objective, setting up the risk-free rate reference data will create three ranges for effective referencing. First, we create a range for the entire table. Please note I included the gray extra column and extra row. This, we change the name or that reference to, in this case, our choice of, since it's a financial metric, fin underscore RF, which is the risk-free rate. So first is creating a range for the entire table. Second, we create a range for the countries. In this case, we typed in fin underscore RF underscore countries. So this will be the range for the countries for which you would populate with risk-free rates. The third range is the years, and that is fin underscore RF underscore years. And this is again in order to capture the interest rate for each year in our reference data. For the second objective, we'll show an example of how to set up the index match combination to pick up the required country and the year's risk-free rate for that country. In this case, if we look at the index match combination, index function has three parameters. One is, in this case, the fin underscore RF, which is the entire table. So this is the table from which we will pull information. The second is we have to match the country or the vertical match in the list of countries, which in this case is the countries that are available in this table. The horizontal match is for which year would we like to the risk rate to be pulled for. And again, in that case, we're referencing the years, which is this reference set. And that is for the years. So going back to the index, again, there's three parameters. One is the table from which we'll pull information. The second is matching for which country and for which year we'd like to pull the data. Now, and I'll come back to this in a second. For the third objectives, we would like to make sure that the data quality is maintained, which means we want only one spelling of USA and we want only one spelling of the year throughout the workbook. Now, for that to stay consistent, for each one of the cells from which we want to represent the country or the year, we'll use a validation rule for that particular range. So in this case, if we go to the data validation, as you can see, we picked up a list and then we referenced in this case, the list of countries, which is the previous range that we created for the countries. And we're doing exactly the same thing for the year. We'll create a validation, we'll pick list, and then we'll pick up the years range that we already created. Which means that when we have to pick up a country, it will automatically pick from this reference data for countries, or a year, which will reference the years available. Now, as I mentioned before, the role of the gray column and row are to give us the ability to add additional years or countries without impacting the formulas throughout the book, which will reference this data. So, for example, you would pick up the gray area, the gray column, you will insert a row, and it's a matter of copying the previous row value or previous column value and the enter an appropriate risk-free rate. And same thing on the country side, we can enter a row just above the gray line. This can be done two ways, ensuring that if you want to enter a row from multiple tables, we'll enter the entire row, or we're entering just one row, and we'll do this to shift cells down. In that case, again, in order to keep formatting consistent, we'll copy the previous row and just change the country, in this case, Italy. Okay? And that's how we reference a reference data set and preserve data quality, as well as give us the flexibility to add additional years or countries in this case. These best practices can also be reviewed in the Setting Up a Reference Dataset lesson in the Lunchtime Lessons series.